Hello everyone, today we are making baguettes. An essential tool to making these scrumptious baguettes are these bread trays, which you can find on Amazon, and there is a link in the description. So I'm going to gather all of my materials and we'll get started. Now this is a 2-day process. We are going to first start off with our water. We've got our sourdough starter, flour, and salt will come later. So I'm going to turn on my digital scale. This is extremely crucial to any bread making process. I use grams, so we're going to put it on grams. I'm going to put my bowl onto the scale. I'm going to tare it, T-A-R-E, and I'm going to pour in my water. I usually put in 635 grams of water, or 642, which is what I ended up with. Next up, I'm going to add in the sourdough starter. Now, I fed this morning, and it has doubled in size, and I'm going to put in between 150 to 200 grams of sourdough starter. So it's at 642 grams of water, and now with the sourdough starter added, I'm going to stick there. It's at 834. Okay, now I'm going to set that aside and turn off my scale, save battery, and mix the sourdough starter in with the water and just get it kind of broken up, mixed in as much as possible. Doesn't have to be completely mixed in. There can be some chunks still. It's no big deal. And this is just tap water. I'm not using any fancy waters, no fancy flours. Big bag of flour from Costco. Okay, now I'm going to put this back onto the scale. And I'm going to tare it again. And now I'm going to add the flour, my Costco flour. And I'm going to put in 900 grams. Next up is mixing this up, and then we're going to let it sit for 1 hour, and then I'll be going to the next step, which is adding the salt. Okay, so we're mixing the flour with the water. As I've seen in other YouTube videos, everybody says, mix it till it gets shaggy. Okay. It's not going to stay this way. You might even be thinking at first, oh, this is really dry. Not to worry. As long as you get all the water in there, it will be fine. So you can see it looks pretty shaggy and dry right now, but I've got some more moisture that's underneath. So I'm going to pull that up so I can get all of the moisture that's underneath. There we go. Try the other side. Now on hotter days I would use more water, but it is February and it is a little bit chilly, so I use less water. Now what I'm doing is just trying to make sure all of the the flour is really mixed into the dough. So I'm just pressing it down as I go along. And I just keep doing this for a little while on both sides until I can see that the flour is really mixed in the dough. And if you're wondering what this thing is, this is from a rice cooker. It works very, very well. But any kind of wooden spoon will work. Something that's not going to break, because this, going to put some muscle into it, and you don't want to be using a kitchen utensil that's not sturdy, that could get broken. Okay, I think that's looking good. So now I just kind of do a last scrape of the sides, get that all down, around. And now for the really fancy part, let's scrape that off with my finger. My hands are clean. I'm going to cover this and let it sit for an hour. And what I'm covering with, you can use a tea towel if you like, but I got this handy dandy shower cap from the Dollar Tree, and it works really, really well. Okay, so it's been an hour. We're going to take that shower cap off, and we're going to put in our salt. And I actually use this pink salt. I wasn't sure about it at first, but it's no big deal. Just use any kind of salt, as long as it's salt. And we are going to put in 18 grams of salt into our dough. So 18 grams of salt. I'm just going to pour that around in there. With this type of salt, it can make your dough look a little pink. Like I said, no big deal. Okay, so now I'm just going to use my hands and put that salt into the dough. Just kind of push it in with my tips of my fingers, and then I'm going to dig my fingers in and twist and try to get all of the salt incorporated throughout the dough. Do it, and then I'm going to start just turning the bowl around and picking up the dough and putting it on top of itself. I guess it's all kneading, sort of. It's not totally kneading, but so again, I'm just picking up a piece of the dough, pulling it, putting it on top of itself, turning the bowl, and doing it again. So I'm just going to keep doing this until the dough kind of comes together. You can see it's not that shaggy dough that we had earlier. It's starting to look like actual dough that you can turn into bread. Okay, a couple more times here. To the right of me, I have a Pyrex dish, a rectangular dish. So we're making baguettes. So our dough is going to be rising in this dish, because when we get our dough out of the dish, we want it to be rectangular. You'll see at the end of the episode. Okay, I think we're good. So now I'm going to dump this into my Pyrex dish. Just scraping it out with my fingers here. Make sure I get everything on the sides. Don't want to leave anything behind. Okay, I'm going to dump that in here. Very important to never ever let this type of dough go down your sink. So you want to, you can see now everything is out of there. It is in this. And what I'm going to do with this dish afterwards is I'm going to put it into the sink. I'm going to fill it with water, scrape off the dough, and then pick it up with a paper towel and put it in the trash. Because again, this can never be put, this should never go down the drain, because it can turn into cement and clog the drain. Okay, last step, we're gonna put this over the dough, and in half an hour, we're going to fold the dough. Just putting a tea cloth on there, and we're gonna wait in a half an hour, and we're gonna fold the dough. So we're back. It's been half an hour. I'm going to take off the towel. I have a little bowl here filled with tap water. I'm going to stick my fingers in there and kind of pull the dough away from the sides of the dish. Around. Now what I'm going to do is pick up the dough in the middle. You can see that. Got my hands both on the sides here. I'm going to pick it up. And I'm going to fold it onto itself. Like this, and then like that. Okay, and that's pretty much it. And we're going to let that sit for half an hour and do another fold. Okay, so we're back. It's been another half hour. We're going to do the same process. Dip my fingers in some tap water here. Go around the edges, kind of pull it away from the side. So you'll see it's going to look a little bit different from the very first time that we did this. Get both my fingers wet. I'm going to dig on the side of this, lift it all the way up, and then again fold it onto itself. And we're gonna do this 2 more times after this. Okay, so this is our 3rd time, and 1 more after this. Okay, last time folding the dough onto itself, and then we're gonna put this into a cold oven overnight. You might be wondering, why a cold oven? Well, because if it sits out on the counter, it gets all dry and gross. So if it's in the cold oven, it will keep its humidity. Okay, so now we're going to put our dough into a cold oven. I'm actually putting it onto a tray. This doesn't really happen in the winter time, but when it's really warm in the summertime, it can go over the top, and you really don't want that dough falling onto the bottom of your oven. So we're going to put this in here. Leave it there until tomorrow morning. Don't bake any cookies. Okay, so it's the next day. I put this dough in last night at around 9 o'clock. It is now almost 11 a.m., a little bit later than I had wanted to. So let's take a look at our dough and see how it's doing. It is a little bit warmer in my house today, so you can see it has risen quite nicely. So I have 2 mats just because I get the dough ready here, and then I transfer it over here, and then I come back over here. So do whatever works for you. If you have granite countertops, then you don't need any of this. But as you can see, my counter has these grooves in it, and so I don't want the dough going into that or any of the flour either. But granite countertops work really, really well. Okay, so I'm going to dump this out onto the mat. Put a little bit of flour on top, and then get flour on my hands. I'm going to stretch this out to get it into a rectangular shape, and then I'm going to pat it down to try to get it so that the dough is even throughout the rectangle. That's pretty good. I'm going to take this bench scraper and put 1 line down the middle, and then 3 lines here, again trying to make even sections, and that's going to make my 6 baguettes. Cut that off. Stretch that out a little bit. Fold it onto itself, keep folding, and then pinch the ends and the seam. Okay, so the dough is now ready to rest. I'm going to cover it with this tea towel and let it rest for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's time to roll out our baguettes. I'm going to take this towel off and just kind of dust off the excess flour. I'm going to put a little bit of flour here, not too much, just to keep it from sticking. Put my dough here. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit. And then I'm going to take from the top, go down about halfway. I'm going to flip the whole thing around. And now I'm going to put my finger here, and with my other hand, I'm going to go down to the end of the baguette, end of the dough, and pull it on itself. And then I'm going to do that 1 more time. Pressing it down as I go along. And those nice bubbles in there. Okay. Make sure that's all pinched up, closed up, and then roll it out a little bit more. Stick it a little bit. Actually, that is already long enough, so I'm going to go ahead and put this onto my baguette tray, and we'll do another one. Okay, so our dough is ready. We're gonna let it rise. I'm gonna cover it up with saran wrap to keep in the moisture, because if I just leave it out like this or just cover it with a cloth, it tends to dry out. Go. And the same towel I've been using since yesterday. Put that over the top, and we're gonna let that sit for maybe 2 to 3 hours. It just depends on the temperature in your home. And then we'll bake them up. Okay, so our dough has risen. It's ready to be put into the oven. I've sprinkled a little bit of flour on top, and now I'm gonna score the bread. This is a scoring knife, but if you have any sharp knife, that would work as well. I'm gonna do 3 cuts diagonally right into the dough for each baguette. Okay, these are ready to go in. I am using a steam bake oven, but if you do not have a steam bake oven, you can place a pan of boiling water underneath where your tray that you're putting these on, and that will work just fine. That's what I used to do with my old oven. Okay, I'm gonna leave that, it's at 450. I'm gonna leave that just for like 1 minute for the bread to get kind of seized by the heat. And then I'm gonna turn down the heat to 400. And then we'll cook those for about 20 minutes. It depends on how dark you want your baguettes to be. So the bread has just come out of the oven. It smells so good. So let's take a look what we have here. You can see that with these trays that I use on the bottom, you have that crunchiness. That's the trick with baguettes, is to get them crunchy on the outside and soft in the inside. So let's go ahead and crack one open. So you can hear that. And let's look inside. Look at that. Soft inside and crunchy on the outside. Thank you for watching, and happy baking.